Cal? Cal! Hey, Caliban!
Mikan Hana? Welcome back to the all-new Just Enough Trope podcast, now with 30% more additives and a great minty taste. I'm one of the hosts, Caliban.
And I'm another one of the hosts, Mikan Hana, and we're here to examine all of the tropes in popular media, going over them again and again in an endless purgatory, like the galaxy is a skipping record and God is blacked out on the couch.
Vivid. But before we begin, it's only fair that we define exactly what a trope is and what we're even trying to do here.
We already did that last episode.
But this is boilerplate for the new listeners.
Truly, the podcaster is the modern Sisyphus.
I don't know what you mean. By the way, listeners, be sure to like and subscribe to us on your listening platform of choice.
How original.
A trope in art or fiction is an element, or a plot device, or a character type, or even a phrase that we tend to see again and again, like the damsel in distress or the knight in shining armor.
Or the host who has been pushed too far.
Trapped in a world she never made.
Or a website she never made, like the tvtropes.com.
Yes, we have no connection to the tvtropes.com, Grandma. But it's a great resource for examining tropes in media. You know, sometimes I wish that we'd named our show Old Sundry Cliche or something like that.
That we had a time microphone and we might be able to make that change.
Sure. We're not affiliated with the TV Tropes or tvtropes.org, but we're doing something similar. You know, we're examining the character, plot, and script elements of popular entertainment, and we're talking about why they tend to recur.
Recur.
And my co-host seems to be caught in a loop of her own, so why don't I hit the reset button and I'll see if we can't get to today's topic. How's that?
And I'm another one of the hosts, Mikan Hana.
Okay, that's close enough. Time loops. So hot right now in genre entertainment. You fall into a time portal, or you're infected with alien goo, or you're cursed by a capricious god, and bang! Hope you're a big Sonny and Cher fan.
Groundhog Day or Groundhog's Day, maybe.
Is that a regionalism? I've always said Groundhog Day, but I also know that some people say Groundhog's Day instead, and I have no idea why. And really, it should be Woodchuck's Day, technically.
The 1993 Harold Ramis film Groundhog Day is probably the most famous example of the trope, and it is what most people think about when they think about time loops. But it wasn't the first example in media.
It's hard to pin down the exact first occurrence of time looping in fiction or media. And for the purpose of this episode, you know, we're looking specifically at time travel where a character is repeating a set of circumstances over and over to some end.
So not just someone is time traveling back to events that already happened, that they may have lived through before.
Yeah, not like, you know, Back to the Future. He goes to the future and sees old him, but
right.
There's two of them. I mean, you know, we want classic Bill Murray just living the same day over and over situations here.
Do we need to talk about the first time travel story?
Time travel story? That's a completely different episode.
Oh.
That's a different podcast.
Oh.
You know, time travel in fiction, and of course, you know, when we talk about fiction, we're talking about 100 years of movies, right? And honestly, we're going to be talking about movies a lot today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, we're also, at the end of the show, going to talk about a short story. And of course, it does exist in like comics and literature, but boy, movies really... It's like running the movie backwards. It's like if you run a camera backwards, it's like time's moving backwards. I want to get too Christopher Nolan on it.
Right.
But a lot of our examples are from film. The idea, though, of time travel in fiction, like through technological or magical or supernatural means, somebody could go forward or backward through time. I think that's relatively new.
Okay.
Like people say, like, what's the first science fiction story? Oh, it's, you know, Lucian's True Stories, where they went to the moon and talked to moon men. Or
when did Frankenstein come out? Because I think a lot of people say that's the first one.
All right. Yeah, I know. Well, they're wrong.
Okay.
But that's the first published popular novel, possibly, with time travel or with science fiction.
Right.
And that was 1818.
I have no idea.
I'm going to say.
Okay.
It was the second decade of the 19th century.
Yes.
But the time travel thing, let's see, time traveling Frankenstein.
Oh,
Call the
there you
CW.
go. But Frankenstein would have to be hot.
It's
though,
relatively new. And part of that is the novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess, come on. How come poets, how come you're not making sonnets about traveling through time? Cowards. But I mean, like, once the novel comes out, then you've got an explosion of popular fiction, an explosion of creativity and creators. But I think it has to do with the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
Right? H.G. Wells' Time Machine, 1895.
Okay.
He wrote a story before that called the Chrononauts or something like that.
Okay.
But everybody looks at like the Time Machine and its publication as being what really got it to the masses, this idea of time travel. And then the stories explode, after that.
Sure.
Well, they ramp up and then they explode, like a Tesla rocket.
Oh
before that, falling asleep and just waking up in the future, that's how you time travel.
Yeah, that's true. There were stories about that.
Yeah, like Washington Irving's Rip Van Winkle, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ancient philosophers would often write stories where their protagonists would sleep for like 100 years.
Oh my gosh.
Would wake up to find out that, wow, the philosopher was totally right and his enemies are totally forgotten. It was just a way to like...
Gee, I wonder who wrote this story and left it on my desk. This is so weird.
On your ideological enemies. There's also a lot of utopian fiction in the Enlightenment and the post-Enlightenment periods where a guy would like wake up in the future and see how great everything was now because they've got the gold standard or whatever, trying to make some kind of point.
Right.
That's why we have flying cars.
Right.
Phrenology.
What?
Some of them get kind of dark.
What is phrenology? I'm an idiot.
That's a different episode too.
Okay.
But Rip Van Winkle, he's not like living through Bunker Hill like over and over again.
Write it! Hypnosis is also a valid form of time travel. I don't know if you know that. Like in Somewhere in Time.
Yeah, Somewhere in Time. I think John Carter of Mars falls asleep in a cave.
Okay.
And there's some magic gas in there. That's
all
bad. Natural, of course. There's some natural because it's like, the late 19th century. Everything is science.
Right.
And then he gets transported to Mars, but he's transported back in time. All the Barsoom novels take place in the distant past, I think.
Oh.
But his spirit, it's all science. His spirit leaves his body. And then it goes to Mars, but it's also a body. And because here's the science comes back, he can jump very high and he's very strong because of the low gravity in his spirit body.
Okay. Yeah. That is very
Only
complicated.
the self-confidence of a Victorian writer could try to sell us on that being science. That's okay, though, because in the 30s, nobody gave a crap. There's a couple 30s hypnosis time travel movies.
Sure.
There's a movie called Turn Back the Clock from 1933 where a guy's hit by a car and he wakes up 20 years earlier and he gets to live his life all over again. It's kind of like Peggy Sue Got Married by way of Herbert Hoover. And fun fact, that's the first film in which the Three Stooges appear as themselves.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes.
That is strange.
They're not like, I think they're actually uncredited, but they're free from Ted Healy. At this point, they were Ted Healy and his Stooges. But then Ted Healy goes off and they were just the Three Stooges.
Okay. I don't know my
very small role in this film.
I don't know my Three Stooges history, I guess.
Soon no one will.
What? Why?
Because like only really old guys, like older than me, are like huge Stooges historians. It's going to be a lost art pretty soon.
That's sad.
Like Victrola Repair. So there's not a lot of examples. Most of them are, like we said, I think Bing Crosby was in a Rip Van Winkle movie in the 30s. Oh, no. Was it Rip Van Winkle or was it, I think it was Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Okay.
Which is itself.
Yes. I've heard of that.
See, that one he kind of falls asleep and then he goes back in time. So Mark Twain, once again, you did it, buddy. You did it. Oh no, they're always all a dream. Even the Turn Back a Clock was. It turns out he's a dream. He's just in the hospital because he got hit by a car. He got hit by a freaking car.
Well, right.
So you listening to the whole thing.
Okay. Rip Van Winkle really just wakes up and he's old, though, right?
But it's not. He traveled through time by just
sleeping,
not experiencing 20 years. Yeah, that's how he did it. He took the slow way. Don't get me wrong. He
took a long nap.
Right. But in some of these things, like in those utopian novels, it's like, isn't Erewhon one, or maybe not?
I'm not familiar with that.
There's just like in the 17th and the 18th century, there are all these treatises. All these guys have like these philosophical, political treatises, but they want people to read them. And the novel is becoming a more popular form to get books out there. And so they just put like a light dusting of sci-fi on them. And then suddenly it's like, oh, wow, it's a sci-fi novel, but it's really just like a college lecture where a guy falls asleep under a tree and then he wakes up and there's flying cars. H.G. Wells kind of perfected that, but H.G. Wells was a much more talented writer. So H.G. Wells wrote a lot of stuff that was very pointed politically, but it was usually so entertaining that it's like, okay, you can do both.
Sure.
And it wasn't just like blah, 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 lecture, or like, oh, if I could kiss my high school girlfriend again. 23 Skidoo, let me teach you that. It's 1905. What's he dancing? It's crazy. I don't know what this 23 Skidoo is.
So yeah, you can have both.
One of the get you a writer that can do both.
Yeah, right.
One of the earliest examples that I could find of a film where you are literally doing like a day over and over again.
Yeah.
Is nobody's seen this. It's Les 15, and of course it wouldn't be 15. It's whatever 15 is in French, but I'm way too far from my French license.
Yeah, me too.
Les 15 Mai.
Okay.
Which is of course the 15th of May. And that is director and writer Claire Denay's graduation work from film school.
Ooh.
It was her her senior project or whatever you call it.
Okay.
And it features a couple that wakes up on 15th of May, and they both had a weird dream. And then the day that they live through like kind of mirrors that day. It's a strange occurrences happen. And then they wake up again, at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
Claire Denay, boop, 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 boop. All I can think of is High Life right now, but I know she's done more than that.
Okay. Wow. High Life. Yes, I remember High Life.
Great film.
Look, it's a sci-fi film. It's, Pattinson, who I love, but it's just not a great story. I mean, he raises his daughter. That part is cool.
Okay, I forgot that part.
Yeah. Okay.
It's outside the scope of this. I don't even know.
Yeah, it is.
Honestly, it's fairly trope free. Maybe it would be a good challenge for us to try and come up with tropes in
High Life.
Yeah. Let's see. The sex room. We all know that trope.
Oh, God. Let's see how well I remember that movie.
Mia Goth becoming a star despite her handicap of having no eyebrows. We all know this to be a trope. Maybe there's Robert Pattinson just kind of moping around a set and calling that a movie.
I mean, I think it's just like Robert Pattinson. Yeah, right.
Chocolat's probably her most successful mainstream film.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So anyway, and you know what?
What?
Your beloved Japanese. That's so weird to say.
My beloved Japanese? What are we talking about here?
The Japanese, very early on, got into this thing, this time travel, time loop thing.
Yes.
There is a book called The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which came out in 1965, which is about a girl who has the ability to time travel, and I don't know if it's loops exactly. There's loop-esque situations, but really she's kind of like trying to change things and like make things better, like in her life. And so scenarios kind of play out that might be a little different. And that's been remade. I mean, it was an anime probably a decade ago. It's been a couple live action movies. Speaking of cartoons, Japanese cartoons, anime, the long-running anime Urusei Yatsura did a episode or a movie where the characters had to like live this one day. There's like a festival that they were doing and they had to do it like over and over again.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, like, ideas, they're out there.
Yeah, they're definitely out there. Yeah, I when I was looking at other time loops, I came across The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and that was mentioned as being, I mean, not the earliest, because you're talking about stuff happening way earlier than that, but
is the Time on a Biscuit or whatever it was called?
Time on a Biscuit? The Girl Who Left Through Time?
Turn Back the Clock? Like, that's a loop, and it only in that, like, he's living one part of his life over again. And from what we said at the beginning, I only bring that up to like just bring up the incidence of like time travel becoming more popular in fiction.
Right.
Because is one loop a loop? He's only looped once. We're deciding that we are going to look at Groundhog Day-esque scenarios.
So he's only lived through it once again. So
he goes
twice?
back 20 years. He's 40 years. He's 40 years old.
Right.
He becomes 20 again.
Right.
And because he's 20, he's like, oh boy, got to get all my money out of the stock market for 1929.
Right.
And then he's able to go. I think he goes to the president. He goes to like Wilson, and he's like, you better make sure you get into this League of Nations thing or whatever.
Oh my God.
And he ends up like being in Wilson's cabinet and becomes very successful based on this information. He biffs it.
Yeah, I was thinking of Biff.
Right, but we can't talk about Biff.
No, because that's another episode.
We're Groundhog Daying.
I don't know that counts as a loop. I mean, you're going back in time. It is time travel. Time travel confirmed. But if you only go back once, is it really...
That is a loop. If I take a piece of string and I wrap it around once, it's a loop. Oh.
It is a loop.
Looper?
Looper?
Does not count.
Oh, okay.
Looper would see... I guess if you loop once, you're a looper.
Right.
See, a looper seems to imply that you would be looping.
Multiple times. Yes.
Your job is to loop.
Right. That is what it implies.
It should be loop killer.
Yeah.
Because what he's doing is he's killing people who are looping.
That's
they
true.
send somebody back, and then now they are looped.
Right.
And he cuts the loop.
Right.
But then he comes back when
cutter.
He is the loop one. He is the looper and the loopee.
Yeah, see, I think looper just sounds...
The loop A.
Okay.
It's a looper fiasco. But we're not talking about Looper. That's a dumb movie.
No, but
I said it.
But I think it looper sounds better than loop cutter. Like, that's too many words.
Yeah. Maybe they shouldn't have made the movie.
I mean, that's entirely possible.
It's not a good movie.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day is in 1993. Skipping ahead, and that's pretty much, I think, what everybody thinks of. That's kind of what we're centering on as the trope.
Gold standard.
Here. Yeah, that's your gold standard.
Yeah.
Which...
Yes? What's wrong?
Well, I don't know. Nobody paid $69 million, nice, for Groundhog Day, but I would consider in the minds of the public, it's still the gold standard.
I think
Not the gold standard where every dollar is backed by actual weight in gold.
No.
The thing that would give us a utopia.
Right. No, but I think that is exactly what people
What if this became
about.
like just a gold standard show? We're all about the gold. My friend William Jennings Bryan's going to come on and he's going to debate me.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just like the idea of living the day over and over again. And then like at first you hear Sonny and Cher and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Or not even like, wow, this is amazing. It's like, okay, I'm waking up. And then it gets more irritating as it goes on and on. What?
See, I said Groundhog's Day. I say it sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of replication.
Yeah.
Ironically, of that premise after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A television movie called Christmas Every Day came out in 1996.
Ooh, boy.
Where a selfish teenager is forced to relive the same Christmas. So they took the sort of didactic, moralist, light intention of Groundhog Day and really put the pedal to the metal on that one. But leave it to a German to throw everything out of whack. And that's Run, Lola, Run. We'll talk about Run, Lola, Run later.
Okay.
But I want your opinion. Is it a time loop movie? Think about it, won't you?
She is reliving things.
Is she? We'll talk about it.
Okay.
And in 1999, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas
Oh my God.
presents a story in which Huey, Dewey, and Louie have to repeat Christmas Day until they learn the true meaning of Christmas. Like in all things, Uncle Scrooge did it first.
I was gonna say, is Scrooge in it at all?
Well, he did it after Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah, well.
But still.
Yeah.
They're not fighting swiggly aliens with helicopter blades, but we'll get to that too. There are so many movies that we could talk about.
Yeah.
In between 1999 and now. I will quickly point out the one that I just sort of obliquely mentioned, which is, of course, Live, Die, Repeat, a.k.a. Edge of Tomorrow.
I love Edge of Tomorrow.
There is Source Code.
Yep. Stuck on a Train.
We could also talk about, because that's a little different. Apparently, the Puella Magica movie has a Groundhog Day situation in it.
Okay.
Who knew?
I did not know that.
Yeah. But, and there's things like Doctor Strange and his time manipulation powers and so on and so forth. Happy Death Day. Here's the point. Here's what you get out of it. There have been 54 time loop movies.
Wow.
Since 2001. 10 of those came out in the last 2 years alone. Are you okay?
Too many time loop movies.
I better try to reset this again. Okay, hopefully we can try this again. You ready?
And I'm another one of the hosts, Mika and Hana.
Okay, this might be a problem. So there's a lot of variations on this kind of story, the time loop, but since we're cataloging here types of time loop stories, I think that we should try to define some categories for time loop stories based solely on the specific mechanism of how the time loop happens. We could talk about like the intention of the story, how they're used later, but like my spectrum brain really needs to put these in some silos.
Yeah, sure.
I think there's several kind of mechanics that you see in the storytelling. You got the typical Groundhog Day, where you're stuck in a specific loop or a day, and it happens over and over. It doesn't have to be a day, a time period. Your Happy Death Days, Your Edge of Tomorrows.
Right.
I read, what do the kids even learn now? When I was in 6th grade, every Friday,
yes,
we read and talked about some stories.
Okay.
And they were often sci-fi stories, and they were either collected or they came in like some kind of scholastic circular or something like that. That's how I read the Harrison Bergeron short story. That's how I read. There's a lot of things that I read.
Sure.
And I don't remember the names of any of them, sadly.
Okay.
And I don't remember the name of this one. So, listener, if you're out there and you know, join our Discord, link in the show notes, or find us at Just Enough Trope on your social media platform of choice. It's a story about a man who gets his hands on a ring.
Okay.
And this ring has a spot, and if you push on that spot, it rewinds time.
Okay.
By like 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes or something like that.
Got it.
And he says to himself, I'm going to Vegas.
Sure.
Right? It's the first thing he's going to... Well, the first thing he does is he, shoots his boss because he hates his job.
Okay.
And then he rewinds time.
Wow.
And he learns there's no consequences, right?
Uh-huh.
And so he's not a good guy. But he gets on the plane for Vegas. He, notices that the stewardess is very attractive. And so he, pulls her down and kisses her. And she's like, yeah, you're crazy. And he just resets it.
Uh-huh.
It's all good. And the comeuppance is coming.
Uh-huh.
These are Twilight Zone-esque stories.
Sure.
Maybe this is a Richard Matheson story or something like that. It kind of feels like it. And at some point, he's got his plan together, what he's going to do, and the plane gets hit by lightning.
Okay.
And he fumbles for his ring, but there's explosive decompression in the cabin.
Oh.
And so people are pulled out of the plane, and he loses consciousness because of the drop in oxygen, the pressure. And he wakes up and he gets his ring and he's ready to hit it. And then he falls out of the plane. The plane disintegrates.
Oh, wow.
So now he's 5 miles up. You don't just swan dive into water.
Right.
So he's falling and he thinks, okay, I'll hit the button. He hits the button. When he hits the button, he's being pulled out of the plane. And he realizes he missed his window. It's too late.
Oh, no.
And so the story ends with him hitting the button again and again and again and just continuing to just fall forever, And
like Sisyphus.
And the last line is something to the effect of he kept hitting it because the only other, choice was to smash headlong into the sea or something like that.
Okay, right.
That stuck with me for a long, long time.
That's really disturbing.
A little more applied Google foo, and I think I could probably find it, but something like that.
Okay.
There's a specific time period that you must, for some reason, relive.
Okay,
I think
right.
Palm Springs would probably fit into this one,
yes,
too.
I think it would as well. Gosh, I had a couple things written down, but I think that you covered other ones.
Well, speak up faster next time.
Okay.
So that's that. There's another thing that I sort of picked out, which was a character looping over their own timeline through time travel or repeated time travel.
Uh-huh.
So if we allowed, say, time's got a hold on me. I don't know why I can't remember what that movie's called. Or like a Back to the Future or something. It would be something like this.
Okay.
I think a great example, which I want to chat more about later, or maybe we do it now, would be the film Time Crimes.
Right.
Which I feel like it's underappreciated, definitely.
Yes.
I don't think it's unknown. I think everybody who has wanted to see Time Crimes has probably already seen Time Crimes.
Well,
but not a lot of people have seen Time Crimes.
I don't think a lot of people have. Well, let's say it's a French film, so I don't know if a lot of. I got that wrong.
It's Spanish.
It's Spanish. Gosh dang it. Well, let me just.
Why do you think it's French?
Let me just rewind time. It's Spanish.
No, I've got the button.
No.
What?
I don't know.
What says French about it? Is it the people speaking Spanish in it?
Stop it.
Is it the bald, middle-aged,
maybe
brunette male hero? It's
maybe.
Like, obviously, this guy's a sex symbol. I think that's more a European thing.
Yeah,
Although even the Germans are like, no, he's not a sex symbol.
I really enjoyed that movie, though. I thought that was really interesting, and the way that I don't know if we talk about it now or later, but like he numbers himself.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah,
and then like he slowly is figuring it out too as the audience is watching it. I really appreciated that too.
What I liked about that film, and we're not really talking yet about what these movies are trying to say,
right?
But we can talk about this a little bit, which is like there are, slight spoilers for Time Crimes, the film. There's a couple different versions of him. And even though I don't like the sexual politics and the lack of agency, literally,
for the female
characters in the film, that's why I thought it was French. I think it's a well-crafted mousetrap. Mm-hmm. And they only cheat a little bit. And then there's one big cheat, which I won't ruin if you want to see the movie.
Yeah, it is a big cheat.
That kind of took it from like a A- to a B for me, but it is very well plotted, and it's the kind of time travel I like, which is like you can't change anything, but it's going to reveal something about your character to go through the events and to deal with the outcome. Mm-hmm. It's all well and good for Marty McFly to go back in time and give his dad a pep talk.
Right.
And then when he comes back, he's got a nicer truck.
Right.
That's all well and good. But that's not really how life works.
No.
And so I like it when characters are struggling against things and the changes that they want to make are already made, and they have to like learn things about themselves.
Right.
And the guy in Time Crimes learns, he's just like, it's a guy who's like, got groceries coming out of the back of his car because he forgot to close the hatchback.
Yeah.
You're like, this guy's an idiot.
Right.
But by the end of the movie, he's like, I'm maybe not a really great person.
Right. And then you get I don't know if he's going to change that, but at least he's aware of it now.
Well,
hopefully he changes it.
I think the idea is that he's, ironically in a movie about going around in time and trying to change things. You can't change things. It's fatalist, but I like that kind of storytelling. But yeah, it's a pretty tightly paced and plotted movie, and it's not too long, and I would recommend Time Crimes to anybody who wants to see a time loop movie.
Yeah, especially where, I do appreciate that the audience is figuring this out as well, and that he like has his past self and like future self have like done these things, and so now he's learning he has to repeat them. And it
becomes he's a guy who is thrown into this crazy situation and goes like, I don't understand any of this, and I'm being hunted by what seems like a serial murderer or whatever.
Right.
And so he has no agency. Then he learns that, well, you are involved in this, and so there's another you out there who's doing stuff, and you will have to be that guy.
Right.
And so he scoffs at that, but then ends up having to do that stuff anyway, and he does it out of fear that if he doesn't do it, because this guy tells him like bad things will happen. So he's like, now he's doing things he really doesn't want to do. And he's apologizing to people for it. Yeah. And he feels like he has to do it.
Anyway.
Then, not to spoil anything, in sort of the third act, it becomes like, all right, now I'm just going to start doing things. And clearly this is going to change stuff. Yep. And I don't know if it's going to, buddy. Not in the way you think it's going to.
I don't know if it is either.
It's pretty good.
So, yeah.
The more determined he becomes, the more ignorant he is of like his agency or his lack of agency. He can't do anything.
Do you
That's
think...
not, we're ruining the movie. That's
I
not
know. I know. Do you think he'll continue looping?
Oh,
or did he
Time Crimes 2.
Yeah, right.
Now it's meet 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, right. Now he's pulled people into it, and it's not just him.
Learn from Star Wars. Don't go to 4, 5, and 6. Or 1, 2, and 3.
Right. That's what you meant.
Star Wars is a loop.
Yeah. Whoa.
It looped itself.
It did loop itself.
So that's, that's actual time travel, but then sort of crossing your own time. Doctor Who has done this once in a while, but yes. Doctor Who is pretty famous for not doing this, I think. Because when you think about it, Doctor Who, the time travel of Doctor Who is until like the self-pleasuring 21st century mode of storytelling.
Yeah.
It was just a vehicle, literally, to take you to a setting where you could have an adventure.
Sure.
So it's
different
like, boy, it'd be crazy if we met Marco Polo or something.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
We would just go there. And sure, we're back in time in another place. Or we're in space and we're dealing with the 27th century humans and aliens that don't matter at all and we're never going to meet them.
Right.
And only recently in like the post Groundhog Day, post Back to the Future Day, have we had these stories where it becomes like, oh, when I do this, I'll leave the garbage can here and then I'll get a mop and that'll help me give my fez to this person.
Right.
And they start doing that sort of thing. But
right.
Doctor Who was never really about that. I'm not complaining. I like that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's not really about that. There's one episode specifically that kind of sends that up or focuses on that. And that is the Ninth Doctor story, Father's Day.
I love that story so much.
Where,
it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, where the doctor takes Rose to see her father die because he was hit by a car.
He goes back to, she gets to see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she basically talks him into like, once he gets hit by the car and he's laying there and he's about to die, I just want to go out and like hold his hand and be there.
Right.
And so the doctor's like, I don't do this kind of thing usually, but
right.
Okay.
I'll make an exception.
And so they go and they're waiting on the street corner where this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And they see it happen and she kind of freezes up because she's overcome with emotion. And she misses the moment. Her father dies. And they get back in the TARDIS and she's like, can we do it again? And the doctor's like, I really don't do this kind of thing. But okay.
Ooh, I got a bad feeling about this.
And so they go back to it. And they watch themselves watching her father get killed.
Right.
And right before he gets hit by the car, she runs out and pushes him out of the way. And the past thems that are there disappear. And the doctor's like, okay, well, here we go. We got a real problem.
Yep.
And they introduce this really interesting idea. It's kind of like the Langoliers. But of these like reapers, these creatures that like eat old time, eat the past or eat paradox.
Yes.
And the doctor never does that kind of thing. He usually doesn't, cross over with himself unless it's a children in need
special. That's like one
special.
of his only rules.
And, and when he does, it reveals this really awesome, like idea for a bad guy, but we can't go back to. I don't think the Reapers have ever come back.
I've never seen him again.
Because you wouldn't want the doctor to be interacting with himself all the time.
I'm not caught up on the
herself
latest doctor.
Or themselves.
But yeah.
But that's a different thing. That doctor is a different doctor.
Yes.
So anyway, I just think it's interesting that like we have to do the Daleks for the millionth time, or like, oh boy, it's the Weeping Angels, but it's like you got the Reapers, like the Reapers.
I think that would be cool too, and I do think that those kind of stories are really interesting.
Of course, they never showed up when the Sphinx was in Trafalgar Square, and we were doing the crazy bearded doctor Winston Churchill thing.
Yeah, I guess they never thought to bring him back, but Russell T Davies is coming back, right? So maybe we'll see the Reapers again. The Reapers.
Another kind of time travel or time loop movie is when you have alternate timelines. And I'll explain what I mean in a second.
Okay.
Or multiple timelines. And this is where I would put Run Lola Run. There was nothing within the fiction of Run Lola Run that says that anything has happened. It's more of like a filmic thing where it's like, what if you watched 5 different 20-minute long movies that were all in the same setting and featured the same characters and the same stakes? Only like they went differently every time.
It's like a choose your own adventure story, except you're like, well, I didn't like that, so I'm going to go back to point A and then I'm going to take C instead of B.
Right.
Right.
Which leads me into... I'll save it, but that's kind of a meta storytelling thing. But if I'm going to take their fiction at its word, this is either alternate timelines or alternate realities or something like that. Another example I think would be Deja Vu.
Yeah, we just watched that. Yep.
The Denzel Washington film, which it's hard to explain why without kind of spoiling some stuff.
You'd spoil it, yeah.
But yeah, there's a possibility of like they kind of have it both ways. Like time is sort of fixed, but also there's an opportunity to possibly make changes,
right?
And then do those changes create paradox, which destroys the universe, or does it create an alternate timeline? And so therefore, like you've got a Denzel Washington who might be running into a Denzel Washington if he's not careful.
Right.
That's that same kind of thing, but it also gives you the opportunity to like, well, here's another set of events that have happened now because of something else.
Right. But I feel like I have questions about the end of that film.
Yeah. I'm not sure there's.
I don't think that the film would satisfactorily really answer, and I almost feel like they call it deja vu just so for like that one moment at the end for him to be like, "Is it? Nah." At least like, okay.
This is almost like deja. He looks into the camera. Deja vu. Too much.
Right. Let's take a different take where you don't say it.
Computers.
Yes.
Have introduced a new level to this.
Okay.
So to speak.
All right.
A different aspect, because in VR or in a simulation.
Sure.
If your characters are experiencing something that is unreal, you can have, it repeat, it loop, it be something that you can't, where events happen over and over again. Also from a sort of a meta-narrative perspective, video games. Video games is like Mario falls on a hole. Oh, Mario's back.
Oh, he's alive again.
World 1-1.
Right.
He's going to jump on some more turtles, like that's just baked into the structure of how you play the game. Now, there are some games that make that part of the ludonarrative structure. Mm-hmm. The Prince of Persia games.
Sure.
All the Ubisoft games, Prince of Persia games, Assassin's Creed games, they all have their own built-in trapdoor where if your character dies, there is a reason in the game why they're not really dead.
For sure.
Or you just remembered it wrong.
Right. Yeah,
so
right.
It becomes a piece of meta storytelling on its own.
I think that's really interesting.
Whoever the guy is, I can't remember the guy's name, the French guy who came up with Prince of Persia. I guess he just really hates game over. No, there must be some reason. I just told the story wrong.
I don't want
Why
this
is my
game to
French
end.
accent so bad? I was hit in the head by a baguette.
I don't want this game to end. Your Ring story that you were talking about, that short story, it reminds me of the
Vat of Acid episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Rick and Morty.
Yeah, Rick and Morty.
That might be where they got it from.
Yeah, that might be. It's so sad though, like him and the girl he really likes.
In the way that you use it.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, a similar thing.
Yeah.
But that's the marriage of the idea of a time loop story.
Yeah.
With the literal video game, because it's self-aware, because he goes, Rick, why can't you make a thing that makes life like a video game?
Right.
And then also it is the makers of the show commenting on the lack of impact in stories where you can do whatever you want all the time.
No comeuppance.
Right. Yeah. And so Rick is like, in the story, Rick is like, no, every time you did that, it liquidated some other Morty in another universe.
Which is freaking terrifying.
So you've killed thousands of Mortys, and God knows what you did when you were those Mortys. All those things have happened, but I will collapse those realities into you, and you have to live with it.
I know. And
yeah, you could get in this big vat over here. What, there's a vat of acid in this universe too? Every Rick has a vat!
He's so, like, upset that Morty said his idea was stupid.
Yes,
he's got a
petty person
he is.
in the multiverse.
He's super petty. And, like, I mean, you just think about, like, you don't know all of this at the beginning. And, like, Morty probably wouldn't have gone for it if he'd known he was killing other Mortys or liquidating them.
Yeah,
but, like,
it's a completely unfair situation that he puts Morty in.
But like, Morty hit the button for, like, dumb stuff.
Yes.
Like, so much dumb stuff.
Yes, and then at one point, look, I am uncomfortable praising Rick and Morty this much.
I know, me too.
Even before we knew what we knew now. But there's at one point he's playing a video game and his guy dies, so he gets out his controller and rewinds time so he can go back in the video game.
Which is just like, come on. Come on. So, yeah.
So, great example. What did we learn there? We learned that don't criticize Rick's
I think that's
flights of fancy.
I think that's what Rick wants you to learn. But I think
I noticed too at the end of that.
There is comeuppance. You might not realize it, but yeah.
I suppose if you live in a universe where Rick's God, I guess. At the end, the tag on that episode is the guy who thinks he's invulnerable to acid goes on alternate universe Johnny Carson. And then is,
my God, yes.
Looks like I'll be having ash flambe. And is that ripping off the Bulletproof Legs guy from Conan? Remember the old Bulletproof Legs guy sketch?
No,
Where the
don't.
The guy would come out and he's like, I've got bulletproof legs and here's my song. Well, my legs are bulletproof, and he'd like kick his legs and he'd sing this song. And then while he's singing the song, you look over and there's a guy like in a hat, in a leather jacket with his hand in his coat.
Oh my God.
He'd just
what?
He'd pull a gun and he'd shoot the guy in the chest.
Oh my God.
And so it's a recurring character. He would come back and they'd be like, well, he just got out of the hospital. He wants to share something with us.
I feel like you can't do stuff like this on late night TV anymore.
No, you can't do anything fun anymore.
Aw.
You can't do anything fun anymore.
Yeah.
Craig Ferguson's off.
I know. Do you remember his...
He never did sketches. I mean, he did like his own characters. But...
You know his skeleton, who was his co-host, Jeff? Yeah.
Wait, that's it?
Shed a tear for Craig Ferguson.
You're just bringing up the existence of and
like, what
he would have a field day with King Charles III.
Oh, he would.
He'd do his impression.
Yeah, he would. Right. He was always Prince Charles, and Jessica Fletcher. Has there been a murder? He was always talking about, like, she'd always show up and be like, oh, wow, is there a murder? And nobody ever thinks it's her.
Right.
She's this nice lady. But yeah.
Right.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. He probably had half the writers that Conan did.
Yeah, probably.
If he had writers at all.
I'm sure he had writers.
So that's like how the stories play out mechanically.
Right.
But if we look at them thematically.
Yes.
What defines a time loop story thematically? I think, let me get you started.
All right.
I think they are about characters being forced to reflect on themselves.
I agree. I think it's about, but maybe they can't face themselves quite yet.
Do you know what?
At the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, if it seems like what I'm saying is super obvious, I don't know. First of all, welcome to our show. Second of all, it's both obvious and sometimes it's so obvious you need to put something else in there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that Palm Springs is about fearing responsibility?
No.
And commitment?
You're kidding.
It's almost like they just wrote like that and then went, but what if it's time travel? And then just jammed the time travel in between. It's just so nakedly about that.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that's what it is.
Yeah.
But do you think
that's all it's about?
But do you think that by the end of the movie that the characters learn to be
responsible
or commitment?
I think they have a synthesis of that lesson in that they're going to follow it in their own way. They're probably going to, spend some more years together enjoying each other's company, and then they'll take a shot at having kids in Palm Springs too.
Oh my God, no. And they get trapped in another time loop.
Palm Springs boo. And then they got a baby time traveler.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
No, their adult children come back in time.
Oh, see, I like that more.
We have to help you get through some crisis or we'll never be. All right, start writing it.
Okay,
put the poop jokes in. Put them in.
Yeah. Oh God, really?
I think this is how it happens. Like I was not impressed.
Write backwards.
It's not writing backwards. That's your favorite phrase. It's just lazy.
Favorite.
It's just good enough writing. And Palm Springs is fascinating to anybody who hasn't seen Groundhog Day. That's what I think.
I think it's just like, oh, it's like Groundhog Day, but it's like now.
Well, only like 60-year-old film critics are saying that. I think the 25-year-olds who are watching it on Hulu don't have a connection to Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right.
And so
because it came
for
out
them,
before
it's
they
like,
were
this
alive.
is wow. And then, it's like the whole thing where it's like, well, yeah, I know that there was another movie like this, but I like this movie.
Right. This is my Groundhog Day. And
but unfortunately, I'm one of those 60-year-old guys.
Yeah, I like Groundhog Day.
And I remember everything. So every time something comes out that's just another thing, I'm like, but there's another thing already.
Right.
I mean, if you really nailed it and did it better, but here, off the top of my head, remakes that improve the original.
Oh, gosh. Remakes of...
Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings versus Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings.
Well, okay.
All right. That was a fun game. We're done. Or I don't know, Captain America, the first Avenger, and the J.D. Salinger's kid, Captain America. Sure.
Okay.
But that's like a complete difference in effort. Do you know what I mean? It's
yes.
like direct-to-video versus the largest entertainment company on earth.
I'm sure there are others. I'm having trouble thinking of them. Like maybe like it's because the remakes are just that much. I don't know. I feel like they're doing a lot of remakes these days that aren't as good as the original. I feel like there's more examples of that. But
what do you think the best? Oh, is this another show? Should we say this?
This might be another show. Like I can't.
But like, what do you think the best remakes are?
That's what I'm trying to think of, and it's like my brain is freezing because it's like, what is a remake?
Technically, The Thing's a remake.
Well, that's got to be up there. What is the
original Thing's pretty good, though,
is
too.
it?
No.
Okay. Well, I've never seen the original.
Which
Thing.
A Star Is Born do you like the most?
I don't think I've seen any of them, and there's like what 3, which is
4.
like there's 4. Okay. Well. Took a stab in the dark at that one.
It's funny because if you're going to remake something, then do it,
different?
Yeah, different, which seems counterintuitive, but it's really the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
Because that way you become kind of criticism proof.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Coen brothers' True Grit.
Yeah.
Although I don't feel like it's forgotten. Nobody really talks about it.
I liked that movie too.
I don't hate the original one,
mm-hmm.
but I think that the original one wasn't trying to be some fun, happy, slappy thing. It was trying to adapt the source material and be as gritty as you could be for a Technicolor 1950 John Wayne Western.
Sure.
And True Grit only exists in an era where we are able to make it this sort of, the gritty look at a very unappealing, hard, morality-free Wild West.
Right.
And they're able to do that in True Grit, which is why I think it's more effective.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the True Grit with Kim Darby and everybody else.
Right.
But I think I like the new True Grit better because it's more effective. And they're the same movie and you can't really compare them.
Well, I mean, that's hard too. Did you see that they're going to be remaking, or they already did remake, or there's a TV show for Fatal Attraction, which I don't. Why would you do that? And how? And also on top of why would you do that? How is that a premise that you really stretch out? Like, because it's all about getting together with somebody, and for this, it's really hot for a short while, and then it turns, drastically. And it's like somebody's stalking you. Is the entire show going to be somebody stalking somebody else?
The most feminist way to update Fatal Attraction is to just make something else.
Yeah.
I agree. There's a big backlash against a lot of things because of feminism, and I'm on board.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
But at the same time, I think, it's okay to just say, well, it was made at a certain time.
Right.
Like Birth of a Nation. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
No.
But I think that the politics of Fatal Attraction skew more towards, boy, why won't this crazy lady leave this rich white guy alone? But within the story is the idea that, he deserves comeuppance, if not to be murdered. And Glenn Close is sympathetic for the first act of the movie.
Yeah.
She seems like somebody who there's a more complicated thing to her rather than she crazy.
No, there's definitely more complicated.
But it is an 80s erotic thriller, and so it just turns into, she's got a gun,
Right.
But Adrian Lyne never really cared that much about story and motivation. That's not what he's known for.
Yeah.
How do you make it now in the 21st century when you've got 2 zeros as your leads?
Who's in it? I don't even know.
The girl from Party Down and...
Which girl from Party Down?
The girl of birthing age from Party Down. The young girl from Party Down.
Okay.
She's,
I should say the original
Pancake
couple
Queen,
series.
Mrs. Butterworth.
Okay. I
don't know.
Because they rebooted that series.
Yeah, she's not in the reboot.
Okay. All right.
And then it's like, you're right. And then it's like 10 episodes instead of like 2 hours.
Right.
And nobody smokes anymore. So you can't do
the
Adrian Lyne haze. You can't do that. So yeah, it's just like visually uninteresting.
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll make her more sympathetic. They'll give her a backstory. They'll have hashtag team killer, team victim or whatever. And so they'll try to make you, root for either the guy who is an adulterer but doesn't deserve all this, and the lady who's like been pushed too far.
Right.
And she's got some good points.
Would the story
work?
One of
them's a knife.
Yeah, right. Would the story work if it was 2 female characters instead of a male and a female?
A lesbian fatal attraction?
Yeah. Would that work?
So you want to, in order to...
Because it's like sexual politics in there.
In order to try and feministize a thing that I said that if you wanted to, you should make.
Don't do it.
You're going to double down, which in a way it's kind of quadrupling down.
Yeah, it is.
That's your solution.
Let me put it this way.
Well, look, I'm already sold. You're going right through the oil pocket back into more bedrock.
Okay, well, I think it's more it's less about like this lady. Wow, she's just so crazy. And it's more like, I don't understand why this person is being like this, and I didn't mean for this to happen.
I think this already happened a couple seasons on the L Word.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I actually think that would be, if you had to do it.
Right, if you had to do it.
Maybe that would be a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than, let's take something that would happen in like, I don't know, the first half of a Riverdale episode and make it 10 episodes for some reason.
I know, exactly.
What if it was a time loop? What if he continued? He kept cheating on her over and over again.
No, that sounds horrible.
She's throwing acid and it keeps landing on his car. And the bunny is like boiling forever in that pot.
Oh, no, this sounds awful.
You gotta really work to get a bunny in a pot.
I know, right?
We established in the first act that they've got a rabbit and that's their pet. All right, where are we going with this?
I know. I know.
Does he meet her at a pet store when he's buying pellets? No.
She just shows up there.
That
She's
rat's
like,
timeline
so
ends in a pot.
Yeah.
On a stove. So there's that.
Yes.
Improving yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes they just completely fail. Like The Ring Story, which I don't have a title for, and I'm really kicking myself for not finding that title.
The Ring Story? Oh, The Ring Story. Yeah.
It's just more like this force is going to punish you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just end up in a time loop through the machinations of something.
That's true.
The Lost in Space movie with William Hurt has a time loop in it.
Okay.
Will Robinson
yes.
is feeling disconnected to his father because his father is a big explorer for the National Earth Space Agency or whatever.
Sure.
And also, they lost in space. He got a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But then Will Robinson falls through a time portal.
Uh-oh.
On this planet that they're trapped on.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Now, they're also being helped by this older blonde man, played by Jared Harris in one of his first film roles.
Whoa.
Who's helping them out. We learn, guess what? The old guy is adult Will Robinson.
I was going to say, that was my first guess when you said that.
He wants to help Dr. Smith because he's resentful. But then he turns at the end and helps them because he realizes that, that his dad always cared about him. What did he know of Space's austere and lonely offices, and then helps them, keeps Will from falling in the time portal, obviates, or obliviates, I should say,
that version
and
of
obviates
him
to the story his own existence. What the hell? It doesn't matter. Paradox, who cares? Penny will just blog about this later. Who cares? And so that's like, he's learning about himself. I don't know if the kid Will learns anything from this,
right.
but a character who will not be in the end of the movie learns about something.
Wow. And then just ceases to exist because then that version of him wouldn't exist anymore.
Right. And Time Crimes is like also like the guy goes through everything he goes through, changes, or just realizes who he really was all along.
I mean, yeah, or at the very least realizes what he's capable of. You know? It just like
some crime in timing.
Yeah, I know. I was reminded of a TV show that you and I both watched the first season of, and there's a second season of.
Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good.
Russian Doll. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
Great.
I know, because like I remember
he's really learning lessons.
I know,
all
but
over the
like
place.
but at the beginning I really liked that show at the beginning of the season, the first season, and then by the end of it I was like, it was like one of those things, like the more you thought about it, like you're like, do I like this? Do I want more of this?
I think that they felt like, and I don't know if this was always the plan or goal, or if it was the network saying, let's juice this up, the network being Netflix in this case.
Right.
But like, your first season is gotta get up, gotta get up, it's just the one girl.
Yeah.
And then like, no, let's add somebody.
Right.
And it's like,
yes.
adding somebody would be season 2, right?
Right.
And so I felt like I guess the argument is like part of her self-improvement arc here is helping someone else. Mm-hmm. And then, seeing their stuff reflected in her or whatever. But it just bifurcated like the focus. And also, no offense to that actor, but that character is very unappealing. I didn't want him to succeed the way I wanted Natasha Lyonne to succeed in life and in this show. Although I'm not watching Poker Face, I don't care. In a real Ryan Johnson hate vibe in this episode.
Yeah, well.
And so, yeah, like, and I know there is a second season now.
Right.
Which I haven't watched and I'm probably not going to.
Right, exactly.
Because I don't trust Netflix to do anything. But possible, interesting. And also, I liked how they just went for it. They're like, yeah, we're just doing it.
Yeah, I know.
There's no explanation. I don't think there is an explanation in the show, is there?
I don't think so.
There's no... we don't have a twist, really. It's basically just Groundhog Day. We're just doing it.
Yeah, it is Groundhog Day. Yeah.
It's been long enough.
Right.
Let's do it.
Right. But like, so I don't know if we talked about this.
It's like the people that remake, let's make Ben-Hur. It's a book.
I know.
Came out almost 100 years ago.
Right.
So you don't have to pay anybody for that.
Right.
Let's make Ben-Hur.
Right.
Why would you
do that? I know. Well, I always think of like, I think this is an example that you talk about all the time. Like, why would you remake Casablanca? Nobody has done it.
No.
But I'm scared that there's going to be a time when somebody does.
Barbed wire.
There's what?
Barbed wire.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 And like another one that I why would you remake Sound of Music? Because like I feel like that's like a
well, nobody has.
But they did film a stage production and put it on TV.
Yeah,
but that's stage production. That's different. Yeah.
That is like I bet there's a graph somewhere where the incidence of a film on TCM,
yes,
or just in rotation on cable, does or doesn't give it a propensity to be remade. Mm. And I don't know the answer. I'm a scientist. I'm saying I have a hypothesis. Let's get the data. So I'm not going to say which way, but I'm fairly certain that Casablanca has been in rotation constantly forever, right?
Yes.
And so that means that people are aware of it and like it and quote it, even though the quotes were old when I was young.
Yep, sure. Yeah.
And then that maybe is a repellent to trying to remake it. You would think if it's in the zeitgeist,
See, I'm not sure.
somebody would then want to jump on it and remake it.
I mean, Spielberg remade West Side Story.
That was,
so-
okay, that's a little different. He's getting,
I
he's
guess.
seeing the end
Yeah.
in sight.
Uh-huh.
He's not at it, but he can see it from here.
Right.
And he's Steven Spielberg can do whatever he wants. He's
Yeah.
always been able to do whatever he wants.
Of course.
But I don't think that he feels like he needs to please an audience the way he used to.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, sure, I will just, be around when a fifth Indiana Jones film is made, but I'm not going to make it. Yeah, I'll make a fourth one, he said a couple years before that.
Mm-hmm.
And West Side Story is one of the films that got me into filmmaking.
Right.
I saw it when I was a kid. It made me want to be a filmmaker. What the hell? I have the power. I'm going to remake one of the greatest movies ever made.
Right.
That's his, finger in the eye of God.
Mm-hmm.
And God got him. God got him for that.
You got God.
He cast a sex pest and nobody saw it. So,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, God got him for that one.
Did we talk about how folks end the day in time loops or end their loop?
Sure, we can.
I mean, I feel like it's either,
It's extreme.
yeah, either you die or you go to sleep and you wake up again. And it's the same day,
I think you usually
or maybe you die
violently
and then you wake up. Okay. I thought that maybe there might be some instances of just falling asleep and then experiencing
what's
the
the
next
fun,
day.
non-violent time loop where we just go sleep. Shh, just go sleep.
Sleepy time. Yeah.
Gotta get up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess you're right. It is. Why is it so? I don't know.
That happens in Groundhog Day. We just don't see it because it's not interesting. It's more interesting when he takes a bath with a toaster or drives a car off a cliff.
Right.
Presumably, and somebody worked it out that he was in there for, 20 years or something like that.
Was that right? I didn't realize that somebody had time.
They asked Ramis, and he said 10,000 years, and it's like, I don't think it was 10,000 years.
He just was like, people are going to keep asking me this, so I'm just going to give a ridiculous number.
I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But presumably there were a lot of nights where he just went to bed alone.
Of course.
And then woke up to Sonny and Cher.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think so too.
But eventually he hits the point where he is just, he's drinking whiskey for breakfast and
Oh yeah.
just pouring the coffee down his throat and.
Yeah, I mean, you see that in Russian Doll too. I feel like there are days where you're like, okay, well, I just want to end this, and I'm just gonna walk out into traffic or whatever, and it's like, okay, but it's that doesn't break it.
What does it say about the cheapness of life? That if life is eternal, then it is cheap. Like your death or your existence is assured in this case, and so. It's not. It seems like the character always says at first, "Well, then nothing I do matters."
Right.
And because all entertainment is moralistic, not a criticism, it's just an observation.
Right.
Then the second half has to be, "Well, what do I do with this time?"
Right.
And I'm learning a lesson that I don't know that this curse will one day be lifted, and I will have a finite amount of time again.
Yes.
But. I learned that lesson so I can take it to my actual life once I leave this space. A lesson that vampires never learn. When you think about it, vampires and creatures that have eternal life they're kind of in a time loop too in terms of their existence. How come they never learn that lesson? Or very rarely does a Connor McLeod learn that lesson. He decides he's going to save little kids from World War II and be a good guy.
Yeah, right.
Instead of it's better to burn out than fade away. Be a bad guy.
Well, I think, gosh, that's a good example. A little different, but it's good.
It's a temporary nihilism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I
all
think
these films have that because there's nihilism, but it's always repudiated. Except in the Ring story, which we don't have a name for. In the very extreme cases, it is just, nope, you're stuck. This is hell. Whether it's a spiritual hell or just an effective hell, like you are trapped in whatever this is. Goodbye.
Well, and I think sometimes in some of the stories, it's like, oh, I can do whatever I want. And maybe the character has been repressing things or just been too scared to do things. So then they're just doing all sorts of things, or they're like, oh, there's no consequences.
But that runs out.
Right. they get bored,
Right.
and like you're saying, then it's like,
You
well,
learn
now
that it's
what?
connections that
Right.
are important and define us
Yes.
and how we relate to other people.
Right.
And look, I'm not saying that those are bad lessons.
They're not bad lessons.
But I also don't like being preached to.
No.
And a lot of these movies are very clearly preachy. I thought that Palm Springs was very preachy.
Really? Okay.
I don't like being preached. Nobody likes being preached to.
Oh, of course not. Nobody does.
Right.
It's being preached to is like being told what to think, how to act.
Some people.
To an extent.
Some people like it.
Some people like it, of course.
But it's like, if this is a movie that is toying with the ideas of agency,
right,
and then you want to just tell me this is how to live my life.
I need to decide. I need to decide how to live my life. I need to take my own agency. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of times it's like, characters think, oh, they're like nihilism, like there is no God. Nothing I do matters.
Right, but I think that existence, the events of films like this, a priori establish that there is a God or some kind of force, right? Unless it's literally just, I made a time machine and I tripped and fell into it and this is happening to me now. Can you help me or can we stop this? We never find out why Phil Connors is in his time loop.
You're right.
You could, if you're religious, you can say that it's God, or you could say it's the universe, but all those are like higher level spiritual ideas, and they are resolved when he does achieve a connection with somebody else and becomes a better person.
Right.
So
character growth.
The character again, it's this temporary nihilism. The character goes through this thing where he's like, I can do whatever I want.
Right.
But pleasure it fades. Pleasure is ephemeral. Oh, I can't. Oh, there's nothing means anything. Meaning is what you make of it. Right. I feel so alone. Well, you make a connection with somebody and things change.
Right.
It's like these like kindergarten lessons. I don't like. Do I like time loop movies? I don't know if I do. I like ones where Emily Blunt's doing slow motion push-ups and Tom Cruise is just. Can I kill the aliens? Yes, I can. And he's just being the best.
Do we know why he's in his?
He gets alien blood in his face.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
Disgrace.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And his arc, insofar as there is one, and I have not read your Japanese light novel that it's based on, but in the film, he's a coward, and he learns to not be a coward because
he has to save the world.
He has to save the world, but death is. It's easy to be not afraid of death when you literally will never die.
True.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't feel like that's a very successful character arc. He's a coward. He's a military man that's a coward because he's just always been, away from the war and he's never had to fight in the war.
Right.
Then he is mutilated a million times until it just is commonplace and everyday. Mm-hmm. No one's scared of the commonplace and everyday.
No.
Of course he's not afraid.
No. You afraid of brushing your teeth?
And then Absolutely at the end, he goes in to meet Rita, who has no idea who he is. That's something that happens in these movies a lot.
Right.
She's just going to shoot you. And he's like,
yeah.
Tom Cruise smile.
Yeah.
And it's like, he would be insane. His mind would be shattered from going through all of this over and over again.
Can you hand me those scissors?
What?
I just need to put this IKEA table together.
Why are you making weird binocular eyes with
Put
your
this
hands?
red raincoat on. I'm going to give you a haircut.
Oh, no, it's reset time. Whew, that was close.
And I'm another one of the hosts, Mikan Hana.
It's not getting old at all. The theme of self-improvement and the difficulty and the possible futility of the process of self-improvement is the subject of the short story that we wanted to focus on today. It is a short story that I hope you've heard of. If you haven't, we're happy to introduce it to you. Mm-hmm. It's a short story called Through the Flash. Mm-hmm. It is part of a collection of short stories by author Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. It's his first book.
Yeah.
It's a book called Friday Black. It is a collection, like I said, of short stories. And if I had to describe it, I would say Black Mirror. But wait a minute. The actual Black Mirror?
Yeah.
He is black.
Okay.
Also, I don't want to compare it to Black Mirror because Black Mirror is not, it's like the opposite. It's like the mirror reflection of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
If you think Black Mirror is bad like I do,
Right.
it's good. If Black Mirror was created by a white English guy, which it is, this isn't. It's created by a black guy.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Charlie Booker's just like, oh boy, oh, technology. Oh boy, I'm scared of it.
It's pretty scary.
What if phones but too much? And it's just like, yeah, that's
Just like
that's the kind of like idle speculation about what might happen in the future. Maybe my girlfriend will get a brain implant that reminds her what a jerk I am. Yeah, tough one there. Tough one. What's great about
oh my God.
Adjei-Brenyah's work is that it has these expansive, like amazing sort of sci-fi ideas
Yes.
that also, in this context, they're short stories. So they would fit really well into like 22 minutes or maybe an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And they are all centered on like the minority experience.
Right.
They include that in a way. So they are dealing with economic disparity and they're dealing with, racism and things like that. But they're all much more, there's just much more texture to them than something like, wow, John Hamm sure is depressed about having sex with a pig or whatever's going on.
Whoa. Yeah.
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror's kind of weird. This is way better.
Do you want to give us a summary about...
I would love to give you a summary about Through the Flash.
It's going to be really tough.
Best I can.
Yeah, real broad.
Okay, so our protagonist is called Amma, and we learn fairly early on in this story that her and everybody, nearby, they've lived through what is called the Flash, and I think it's like
it's in her town or whatever.
Yeah, it's like nuclear or something like that. But it's because of this experience. They are reliving the same day over and over again. But they all kind of woke up or realized that they were living the day over and over again at different times.
Right.
And
yeah, at first they just wake up and continue living, but slowly, one by one, at different rates, like you said.
Yeah.
They just begin to retain memories from what their experiences.
From reliving the same day over and over again. Yeah. So it's interesting because it's like, it's not just one character or two characters, it's an entire town. Yeah. And everybody has a very different experience and they're dealing with different things and stuff like that. But she talks about how like she's like the new Amma, and then you find out that she's
old Amma, not so great.
Yeah. She is really fast and good with a knife. She hurt a lot of people, and that she killed a lot of people.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that it taps into that idea of nihilism that we talked about before. And I don't know, what I like about the story is that everybody has the potential to be something very dangerous and scary.
Yes.
But also something very mundane, which is the scariest thing of all, right? Mm-hmm. Just a guy in a jumpsuit who's got a hockey mask on. Right. Or a William Shatner mask on or whatever.
I know.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
And so... But they're all at like different rates and they can all serve different roles in the story. And so, Amma is a character who is our protagonist who has been through, and this has happened. You get the idea that this has possibly happened for
a really long time.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Subjectively to them. And for different people. Some of them might have been living thousands of years, like if they woke up earlier.
Right.
And so Amma's response to that, and Amma is, like a 13, 14-year-old girl probably. Yeah. Is to go, well, I can do whatever I want. Because obviously my idea of parental authority, of the existence of a God, all of this has just been...
It's gone.
None of that's real.
That doesn't matter.
Let's see what we can do. Let's just see what we can get up to. Just kids being kids.
That's
and then
scary.
her little brother
Ike.
is like 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And at first he's just 8 years old, but then when he begins to retain the memories, his body never ages. But I love the idea of that like bicameral mind idea that like his body's the same, but but whatever it is that is your brain, that is you, has continued to
grow and
evolve. So he is essentially like an adult man's brain inside, but he still acts like a kid sometimes because, I don't know, that's just the way it is.
Well, and he's in a kid's body, and that's got to be really frustrating too. Like, even if you...
And all these hormones.
And, like, he acted like an adult, you'd still...
I've seen Roger Rabbit. I know how it works. And then their father is not doing good. He has not handled this well.
No, not well at all.
And he can be, by turns, very paternal.
Yes.
And he can be...
very abusive.
But, like, insanely abusive. Like, lethally abusive.
Yes.
But it's a metaphor.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
In this story...
It is a metaphor.
It's not just, a back of the hand.
No.
It's like a slit of the throat.
Her.
Yeah.
And then the next day he tries to make up for it and makes her pancakes. And this is, I mean...
What's
cycle of abuse.
Right. Well, what's great about this story and a lot of his stories is you could just change all the sci-fi words for regular words and it would still be a story.
Exactly.
If some author of, 50 or 60 years ago wrote this about a girl who was like a young girl, was trying to grow up, but she was in a conflict with a kid from another neighborhood and her dad was mean to her sometimes. And we'd be looking back at the story and going, that's a nice cross-section of a young girl's life, Right. But instead there's like drones and like sci-fi weapons and, and a little girl feeding a kid's fingers to his mom.
Yeah, right. And everybody being scared of her when she walks down the street, even though she's new Amma now. We don't know how long new Amma has been around. Maybe new Amma has been around longer than old Amma, but the memory of old Amma is still there.
Yeah.
So
there's so many details in this. This is 6, 7, 10 pages.
It's probably around 10.
About 10 pages.
Yeah.
It's not very long.
It's not very long.
I don't know if this was written as like a call me kind of pitch. I think it works that way. I think it works really as a short story as well, though. And the little details that aren't even necessary are amazing. Like you get, because this could just be any town USA.
Yes.
But there is an implication of something a lot more sinister going on. It's definitely like the near future.
Right.
And in, I don't know, an Electric Dreams episode or something like that.
I like
we would be
Electric
focusing.
Dreams.
Well, I liked it too, but we'd be focusing a lot more on the world and the dystopia of this world.
Yes.
But for the purposes of this story, the author just sets it up as like, well, you need a world like that to get to the situation they're in, which is some country or somebody has some crazy bomb or something that does this. But it's also the picture of a community that is underprivileged, amongst what else is going on in the world and suffers, these kind of immiserations that would happen in a lower class community.
Right.
And I think that's a fascinating transposition into the sci-fi. It makes it sound cool. It's like Those Who Walk Away from Homeless. It's like, I mean, any city in the world could have parades while, there's homeless people in the street or there's bad things going on. But instead it's
absolutely.
It's like the author says in that story, it's like, imagine whatever you want.
Right.
This is the best place ever. I don't want to write it. You imagine
it. You figure it out. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that makes this story very interesting too, because like you said, there's something sinister, like there's some sort of bomb, there's some sort of inciting incident, which is the Flash, that they kind of relive every day once they die, if they live to the end of the day. And but at the same time, like you're saying, it's also very mundane. Like this could be now, this could be, like a town now, it could be like 10 years from now, it could be 10 years ago. But it's like the kind of town that you're kind of familiar with. There's streets, the kids ride bikes, so this is putting the familiar in somewhat unfamiliar, because it's sci-fi, which is, I mean, the most interesting kind of sci-fi, really, when you think about it. Something that happens in the story is that Amma has this dream of her mother. Yeah. And this is really important because it happens. People don't dream.
I mean, there's no dream to have. Like, they wake up in the morning Which, and it's not, this isn't a criticism, because we don't know exactly how the loop works. We know that it's the day before the bomb fell all the time. Then the bomb falls, that's the titular flash.
Right.
And it destroys everybody. And then at some point, possibly there's, I don't know, the night watchman at a warehouse just doesn't wake up. He just is now once again at his job. Amma was asleep because she's a teenager. She's a little girl.
That's true.
So she wakes up, as her day begins. But yeah, like the time is reset to some point earlier in that same day.
Did you get the sense too that like it wasn't like 24 hours or even like a full day, that like the flash happens fairly soon after breakfast? Because like her dad makes pancakes. Yeah. And then we kind of live through.
We don't plan for lunch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's brunch.
I got the idea that it was like maybe like, afternoon or later afternoon.
Yeah.
Because they talk about everybody kind of gathering
to watch
the Flash every day. But yeah, you're right. I don't think it's like a full 24 hours.
No. And there was like some sort of rain.
This isn't Daybreak on Fox.
Oh my God. There's like some sort of rain, like it's like a... Was it like an acid? It's not acid rain, but it's like...
There's some kind of rain that's like a side effect of this...
The flash that's coming.
Yeah. That somebody says like, oh, this is probably going to give us cancer. But it's
I think Ike
it doesn't
says,
matter because they're never going to live through the day to get the cancer.
Yeah.
So they're hoping that since Amma is having these dreams, this is indicative of some kind of end to this or some kind of change.
Right.
Because everybody was the same way at first. Then some people started to remember their lives.
Yes.
And Ike turns out to be, a pretty smart kid, man, whatever he is now. Mm-hmm. I know that he wakes up almost every day asking Amma to kill him.
Yeah, which is really depressing.
But he has figured out like, no, like if you look at the sort of scientific aspect of it, why would anything change? We are defined by our lack of change. But now things are changing. Like people are remembering things. You're having dreams now. If this happens to anybody else, this could be evidence of us, finally getting out of this somehow.
Right. And then he's like excited when she tells him this because it's like, oh, this means something. This could be different.
It's something new.
It's something new. And she hasn't seen this, enthusiasm from him in a while. And so he wants to go talk to one of his friends who like, I don't know, like, I guess they're both very smart and they can bounce things off of each other and that sort of thing. And I'm wondering if anybody else has experienced anything like this too. And then they run into Carl on their way there.
Yeah. And
Carl is another 14-year-old who is the same year in school as Amma. He's a white kid. A bully, or at least he was a bully. He was very mean to her.
They have a language that they speak.
Yeah, they become friends
because they spent decades together, just flensing everybody in town.
Yeah, they're killing people together.
And then I love the metaphor of it though, because it's just like they're all they've got,
Yeah.
So after a long enough time, cutting somebody's head off becomes just like a distant memory or just something that you were annoyed at somebody for doing.
Right.
I'm kind of reminded of, the comic series and the Netflix film, The Old Guard.
Yeah.
Where they've just been living so long that, first of all, they are, they get shot all the time because you have to have some threat, I guess, but they are like incomparable fighters because they've just been fighting every single day of their life forever.
Right.
So that Carl and Amma can be these like 14-year-old super ninjas because if you give them enough time, they're just going to learn to
all the skills,
all the ways to kill somebody that you can do it. And so, let's put her in Smash. I'm going to pick Amma. Oh, you always pick Amma.
Oh my God.
Just cutting Kirby's
just
throat
fast.
out.
Oh my God, no, not Kirby.
Yeah. But at the same time, even that becomes just sort of like, whatever. Do you know what I mean? They talk about in the story about how they started having parties when people started remembering their lives.
Yes.
Because for a while, I suppose, maybe for hundreds of years, some of the people in town would probably run around and
Still
go,
didn't remember.
"You don't understand. We're all in a time loop." People are like, "What are you talking about?" Like, because they don't remember.
Right.
But then, like, once everybody finally in town finally started remembering, the parties died out.
Yes.
Because that like knowledge then became, sure, you know, but now you know that you're trapped in a prison forever.
Right.
So
it's not fun anymore.
No, it's like a horrible graduation.
Yeah. Right. Welcome to purgatory.
There's just so...
Here's your Baskin Robbins punch card.
It just keeps unfolding. There's just so many things that you can get, which makes me regret how short it is.
Honestly, that was what I was going to say too. My biggest criticism is that I wanted more of it. Like I seriously, I cared about these characters. I thought the story was interesting. I would read a whole book about these characters. I don't know. Like, I think you could probably, lots of people take short stories and, flesh them out and make them a book. I do like that it starts, and then she's telling you all of this stuff that has already happened.
Yeah. I
still think you could, start something like that. Like, I want at least like a novella, but I almost feel like even if I got that, I'd want more, but I think that's, it's a good problem to have, because that shows that these are interesting characters. And I think this is a story that's going to stick with me for a while. What did you think about the ending? I don't know if we want to talk about the ending?
I think it's, I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to, because we don't know what's going to happen, right?
No, that's all I can really say about it. It doesn't, you get the idea. There's another theme in the book about how the actions that you take have consequences.
Yes.
Even when you live in a time loop where everything resets.
Right.
There's no way that you can just do all the things that you do and people are going to forget about that. And there are people who, still see Amma and are terrified of her and treat her in a certain way. And it's also kind of a metaphor for, scary black teenagers.
My God.
The prejudice of that.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh no, I don't do that. I don't do that stuff anymore." And they're like, "You did it to me for a long time. Like, I can't change how I feel. Like, we have these, in most time loops, it's like Andy Samberg gets to do whatever he wants to everybody and they forget about it. But in this one, everybody remembers. And so everything you do just continues to have, they get into that a little bit where J.K. Simmons is, hunting him down and doing God knows what to him.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I did like when she talks, I think this is what you're talking about a little bit too, when she goes and she talks to Mrs. Nagel at the end of the story, which is the old lady who's her neighbor.
Who has the flu because she had the flu when the flash happened, so she'll have the flu forever.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And like she goes and she talks to her and she's telling her about how, like, she's the new Amma now and everything, and Mrs. Nagel just kind of looks at her and she's just like, I think the new Amma and the old Amma are the same person. Like, you're the same person. Like, I remember you doing all those awful things and stuff like that. You don't do them anymore, and I'm glad and I appreciate that, but you're the same person. And it's almost like Amma kind of like realizes, I feel like she's coming to terms with that, and that like, oh, I kind of have to accept that is part of my past. I can't just ignore it.
Yeah. She says that, and Amma has tried to wall off that part of her, or make that, not that deny it, but like just make that a different part of her. That was the bad Amma. I'm
different
the good
person.
Amma. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ms. Nagel says something to the effect of like, I think there's only one Amma.
Yes.
And I'm talking to her.
Yeah.
And that we contain multitudes. I had to ruin it by saying that, but.
You did have to ruin it by saying that. I was with you until you said that. And then I was like, oh, gosh.
Hit the button. Give me the ring. But the idea that like, we can't, well, it defies easy encapsulation, but we can't erase the things that we did, but we're also not only the things that we did.
Right. And we can become better people. And I think that Amma has become a better person.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's really sad too that like her mom killed herself like a couple months before the Flash happened, and then Amma says like, well, if she hadn't done that, then she would have been with us forever. Now I don't know why, mom did that, but I think that that's one of the things it's really hard, because she says that her dad kills her sometimes because she reminds her of her, her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just like, I can see that happening in an abuse situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remind my dad or my mom of, the parent who is no longer here
mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. And so then they take it out on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I just...
Strong to very strong.
Yeah. I really like it. And it's like, then you talk about, I feel like I could watch a movie of this too. I really like this story, and I'm excited to see, more things from this author too.
I'd be excited to see, maybe not so specific like Lovecraft Country, but something like Lovecraft Country, like a Black sci-fi anthology show,
mm-hmm.
A la Your Outer Limits or something
Sure.
like that. And because Lovecraft Country was kind of that, but it was sort of
right.
like, they had this frame story about, being in the South and Lovecraft and stuff like that. But like, yeah, I would love to see that. And I'd love to see something like this from this author in something like that. It's called Friday Black because there's a story about like workers working on Black Friday.
Oh my God.
So that's there's consumerist themes. Yeah, he hits it all.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend it. Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. Search for Friday Black. You'll find it. It's first book. Definitely recommend checking it out. Before we try to get through this Flash.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about what you would do if you were stuck in a time loop?
I like to think that I'd be different than all of these other characters.
Just start stabbing. The stabbing begins.
No, stop.
Pretty stabby, these.
They're very stabby. I mean, I don't know that I would go around killing people. I think that, like, maybe at first I would do things or say things that, like, I wouldn't normally do or say because, there's a part of me that, like, is like, oh, I shouldn't say that, but you think it. Maybe I would just be like, no critic. I'll just say whatever. No filter. Just say whatever I want.
You're just like...
I'm just gonna lean into it.
I wish that an impossible thing could happen and time could be locked into place so that I could just speak my mind. Oh my God.
No, I don't know. It's depressing, isn't it?
You wanna change that one? I would finish all the editing that I have to do.
Okay.
And then I'd fix our website.
All right.
And then I would finish the poster design for all the... I'd get all the network work done.
All right. Well, if I had time...
God.
Okay, shut up. If I had time to, like, just, like, sharpen the skill like Amma does.
She's sharpening something.
Hand me those scissors. I think maybe I would become fluent in Japanese and maybe some other languages. I'd say I'd travel, but, like, the problem with that is a lot of the places you want to travel to, it takes, like, half a day to get there. And then, like, you'd get there and you'd be right back.
Mm.
So that wouldn't really work.
I said daily time loop.
Yeah. So that wouldn't really work.
You can get just about anywhere in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Through modern technology. The problem is getting people to allow you to do that.
Yeah.
But remember, you're unlimited in time here. So you could learn to fly an airplane over the course of months, and then steal an airplane. Or you could do what Tom Cruise does in Edge of Tomorrow, which is just learn everything, the pattern of what happens,
Right.
then you could, just sneak in because you'd know where everybody was going to be, where the cameras are and stuff like that. And then, fly the jet or whatever. Do you have to have a expanded intellect? Like the human mind can only hold so much. How can Tom Cruise, even if he's lived through
That's
it,
a good question.
how can Tom Cruise remember where all the things are, right?
Well, and it's not like that
He
was
knows
another
that
thing
this
that was
guy's going to throw a punch like this.
Right.
And I guess the butterfly effect doesn't apply, because what if Tom Cruise farts, on his way out? Would that change whether the guy throws a straight or a cross?
I don't think it does, but
You can't worry about that stuff.
no, you can't. I mean, it's not like I thought that was interesting too. Like through the Flash, like Ike has like this little notebook that he like writes things down on, and it resets every day. But it says like, oh, that helps him remember things. So I was thinking like it's not like Tom Cruise can like keep a notebook that he puts underneath his bed because it resets every day.
No, and there's cards under the bed.
That's right.
So I don't know why that's important.
What was important in the movie? I don't know. It's like, is it like your brain expands with the movies don't think about this. Like, does your brain expand with your knowledge? It doesn't work that way.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe at least a movie like that is positing that there's more, there's more space in the human brain than you can use in a lifetime. Or
do you just get like, if your brain is like a computer, if you will, like, do you just delete files you don't need anymore? You're like, well, I don't need to know how to do my taxes anymore because that's not going to happen. Stuff like that. Do you just get rid of things?
That's the operating level that he's at.
I don't know.
Maybe he's achieved that.
Yeah.
Through his very important religion.
His very important religion?
Tom
Cruise's religion?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe he has.
So really, I guess, I don't know if I answered it or not. I don't think I did. Well, I said I'd do all the work. I would, I don't know. Are we so whipped by
maybe we are
by late stage capitalism that we can't even imagine? I would just do more work. Do more work.
Do more work.
Unless I'm going to confess to like murder or something, like there's not anybody that I would like, I'm going to take a run at the president and see what happens. Like I wouldn't do anything like that.
I wouldn't either. I'm not a violent person.
But over a long enough period of time. Oh, that's the real question. And it's too late to really ask it.
What?
You've been in a time loop for 1,000 years. What do you do that you've never done?
Well, I've never killed anybody, so that's a possibility. But then do you want to live with that?
I'd watch Poker Face.
I'd open a knife store.
Reset! So much stabbing in time travel stories.
And I'm another one of the hosts, Mikan Hana.
All right, let's pull this one into the station. That's it for this episode of Just Enough Trope. We hope that you're enjoying our new format, and hopefully we won't have to hit the reset button anymore, though I'm hiding all the scissors just in case. What's coming up in the next episode of Just Enough Trope?
Yeah, on the next episode of Just Enough Trope, we'll be talking about good guys fighting each other. And
I want every time that we announce something to be like, what? Oh, yeah, that is a thing.
That is a thing. Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
That's our goal. And we did it to me because I forgot that we came up with that. But that's so true.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh my God. The comic book, right?
The comic book.
The classic.
Yeah.
The example.
Yes.
Of the good guys fighting each other.
Yes.
And I don't want to give our show away. Ironically, usually the good guys, they fight each other when they first meet. This is a third act good guys fighting.
Yeah.
This is a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Mask off.
This is Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
But not that.
No.
How hard did his lawyer have to work to get the Batman versus Superman, not Superman versus Batman? Actually, Clark Kent, does he have a lawyer?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has a
Have a lawyer.
No. If he was...
Journalists get sued.
Yeah.
You get sued for defamation.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got to have a lawyer.
He has to have a lawyer. Do you think, like, would Clark Kent ever, like, no, he wouldn't do that. I was just thinking, like, if
Fight for his byline?
Well, yeah, fight for his byline.
He's got to.
Well, of course. But I was just
Justice
thinking.
in the byline.
I was just thinking, like, if somebody was like him, but not as didn't have as much honor. Like, you know, you
Like
can't.
Bizarro? What are you talking about?
Well, you can't recognize Superman when he's wearing glasses
I
and he's
guess
Clark
not.
Kent. So,
Write it
like,
down.
would you be you know, take on different personalities and be like, oh, I'm Mr. Kent's lawyer or
Well,
something
Superman
like that?
has super ventriloquism, and in the Silver Age, I think he could change the shape of his face with super muscles, super face muscles. So
Oh my God.
he could do that.
Okay.
He could have his own Matches Malone. You know, he could have
Okay.
his own alter egos.
Okay.
He could play his own lawyer. First of all, whether or not, so this is all Silver Age Superman. Whether or not he's got the knowledge, he can go to a law library and in 10 minutes know everything there is to know about
Right.
the law.
Right.
Then he can get on the phone and with his super ventriloquism be like,
Change his voice.
yes, I'm the lawyer of Clark Kent, and let me tell you that you're in a lot of trouble. I'm Mr. Kal-El Steen. Too Jewish? And fix the whole thing. So,
Okay. All right.
but it didn't work on this one.
No.
Wayne Enterprises lawyers got the B in front of the S. Well, it gets your B in front of our S
Oh my gosh.
in 2 weeks for another episode of Just Enough Trope. In the meantime, if you want more talk about pop culture and tropes, you can join us on our Discord. There's a link in the show notes. It's free. It's a gateway to a cornucopia of conversations about your favorite pop culture topics.
And we've got social media accounts as well on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just go to Just Enough Trope and follow us and say hello.
Go to, quote, Just Enough Trope, unquote. If you really like what you hear, why not join our Patreon at patreon.com/Just Enough Trope. There we have more content, a lot of movie reviews, extra stuff for subscribers, and also every Monday, well, it's not on a Monday necessarily, at the end of every month, basically.
Yes.
I mean, it's like the Monday before. Anyway, you'll figure it out if you go to Just Enough Trope Patreon. But we have our producer show where our patron producers pick a movie for us to watch based on a poll, usually a couple different themed choices. This is not a great commercial necessarily, although I thought it was a good experience.
Yeah,
we
me
watched
too.
A very early Francis Ford Coppola movie called The Rain People, one of his first films starring Robert Duvall and James Caan. And it was a very fascinating look at the development of an early filmmaker.
Yeah.
And it's all thanks to our patron producers. So if you want to check that out, go to patreon.com/Just Enough Trope. And if you're not the joining type, that's okay. If you still want to give us a tip, go to ko-fi.com/Just Enough Trope. You can put a little non-committal tip in the coffee jar there. Buy us a coffee and say, we really like what you're doing.
That's right. From the Just Enough Trope studios, this is Mika for Cal signing off and saying, keep the geek fires burning.